King, Stat Boy, digital executive producer. Jacob Gallant, how we doing, man? Happy Friday to you.
Excellent. Glad we got to almost the football games this week. We had one last night that wasn't super exciting. I'm sure you loved it, but
I loved every second of it. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We'll get that to it.
Stacked day of topics to talk about. Football, a little bit of basketball, a little bit of baseball as well, because something historic happened in Major League Baseball yesterday with one Shohei Ohtani. We'll hit on that in a little bit, but it is Friday, which means that we have another edition of Friday Football Fever on tap for you tonight. We have 5 games coming your way, Our game of the week, where you will find me at FACS. They are taking on Mitchell. That is a non-region game, a matchup of two undefeated teams. Tigers coming at 3-0 in the season, while the Crusaders are 2-0. They had a game rained out. We got a really good 6A matchup at Houston High School, Whitehaven, who demolished White Station last week behind 4 touchdowns from star running back Christopher Talley. They take their talents on the road to face the defending state champions, who just keep on rolling. All DeSoto County matchup in Olive Branch, Lewisburg, traveling to take on the Conquistadors. That is unquestionably my favorite nickname of any high school in the area, with all due respect to all the other good ones. Brighton taking on Central. I believe that game is at Crump. And then finally in Whitehaven, North Point takes on Fairleigh. So, yeah, let's talk about our game of the week. A couple programs on the rise, really. Now, Mitchell has been a team that has been consistently good for a long time. They won 10 games last year. Really competitive program going back 5+ years. Just a consistently really solid winning program year in and year out. FACS, meanwhile, 4th year under head coach Mitch McDaniel. He spent a long time at Bartlett. His brother Thomas is the head coach at Christian Brothers. So family with a lot of coaching pedigree. 2 years ago, they won 2 games total. Last year, they went above 500. They won their first playoff game in over 15 years. And now this year, they're already 2-0 and look to have a really solid team again. Really young team, but a lot of guys contributing at the freshman, sophomore level that should bode well for them in the future. I caught up with both coaches yesterday to talk about tonight's matchup.
I feel like it's going to be a tough matchup. I feel like they're going to come out and, give it they all and not trying to discredit nobody. I feel like, they're a top-tier program. This is one of the first times in a while we'll be going against a private school, but hey, I look forward to the matchup.
Big, fast, physical. They've got athletes all over the field. I would say that they're probably the most athletic that we've seen thus far all year. So we're excited about the challenge coming in, and we're going to see where we're at in a hurry once we kick this thing off.
All right, so first time I'll be at FACS, period. So look forward to that game. A couple teams that we haven't featured as much this year, but both off to good starts. Both deserve that spotlight. So that's tonight. I'll have a live preview coming up on Action News 5 at 6. And, of course, Friday Football Fever tonight at 10 o'clock with our game of the week, as well as those other 4 games as well. Plus, I think we're going to show a game that I shot last night over at Melrose between Mays and Westwood. So plenty of action coming up tonight at 10. You won't want to miss that. All right, let's stick to the gridiron. I don't know if Tiger fans are still buzzing from last Saturday, but I wouldn't blame them if they are. A huge, huge win, 20-12, They go to Tallahassee. They knock off Florida State. They beat Mike Norvell, former Tiger head coach, and really a game that they controlled from start to finish. Never trailed. Really didn't have many moments in that game where it felt like they were going to lose. Just a clean operation throughout. Seth Hennigan threw 2 touchdown passes. Really just kind of in control the entire day. It wasn't an easy day for the offense. I think the Florida State defense that we heard so much about leading up to the season when they were ranked number 10 in the country, they certainly brought, maybe not their A game, but they were very, very effective throughout the day. Made life difficult for the Memphis offense, but Jordan Hankins and that Tiger defense absolutely answered the bell. Don't get me wrong, I think we know DJU is not very good, but a lot of that credit on Saturday just has to go to the way the Memphis defense played. They were physical. They made him uncomfortable. I mean, 1 touchdown allowed on the road at that school. I mean, again, I know the offense for them this year isn't great, but just an outstanding performance on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think everything we kind of talked about going into the game kind of came to fruition. So we were worried about that Florida State offense. They haven't been able to run the ball all year. The Memphis defense showed up and didn't let that motivate Florida State into playing a better game. They just kind of took advantage of the weaknesses that we've seen through the first 2 weeks, and now Florida State's staring at 0-3.
Disaster.
They're probably going to be fighting for their bowl lives at best this year.
It's crazy to think about because you look at the numbers. if you would have told me that Memphis would average 2 yards a carry going into the game, I would have said they lost. But you know what FSU rushed for? 24 attempts, 37 yards, a yard and a half. They were even worse on the ground than Memphis was, which is a big credit, again, to that Tiger defense. And the Memphis defense, 4 sacks on the day. Man, I just loved the last 2 drives of the game. You know, the Tigers are up 20-12. This was after they missed a 55-yard field goal that kind of would have sealed the game. Very least would have made a 2-possession game with about 2.5 minutes left. FSU got the ball back twice after that. And most defense coordinators are going to sit in soft zone coverage. You know, you're up 8. The only thing that can beat you is a touchdown. Make them kind of nickel and dime you down the field. Don't give up the explosive plays. Most defense coordinators are going to send 3-man rushes, play 7-8 guys in coverage. But a lot of times you give quarterbacks, even mediocre ones, like I'm willing to say DJU is, you give mediocre quarterbacks a ton of time back there, they're going to pick you apart. Mm-hmm. So Jordan Hankins said, you know what, forget all that. He sent, I tweeted it out. So there were 10 FSU plays on those last 2 drives plus 1 spike, so I'm not counting that. 10 plays. He sent 6 blitzes, which is madman stuff. But it worked. And like just having the conviction to do that, I thought was awesome. And I loved, I don't know what you thought, I loved kind of the approach from the entire coaching staff in terms of, you know, Ryan was really gutsy on a couple of 4th down calls where if it goes wrong, obviously, you know, the whole game could be flipped upside down. But the upside of going for it and converting it was huge. And I'm especially thinking of one, a 4th and 3, barely in FSU territory with like 5.5 minutes left, where they didn't even score a touchdown or a field goal in that drive. But just converting the 4th down allowed them to chew like 3 minutes of clock off, which I think was huge. And then Jordan Hankins sending the blitzes. I thought they went in there with an aggressive mindset that they were going to go in there, take control of the game, and win the game. They weren't going to go in there. They weren't going to wait for things to happen. They took control of it. And I loved they played and coached with no fear, which I think is a big reason they won.
When you've got a team that's got their backs against the wall like Florida State, clearly, I mean, I think a lot of people would say that they have more talent than Memphis, but they haven't been using that talent correctly, clearly. You want to be aggressive. You don't want to give them any kind of glimmer of momentum and where they can just turn things right around. And, I mean, 20 points was all it took because the defense looked so good, and they had a great game plan to attack the struggling Florida State offense.
Yeah, so I've got a soundbite from Ryan Silverfield I want to play here in a second, just in terms of, you know, coaches always talk about 24-hour rule, and then it's on to the next. And Ryan said at his press conference on Monday that as soon as they landed, they were on to Navy. But this is just the way I think. I'm like, man, you got to enjoy this one. And not that Memphis is, it's not Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame. But Florida State is Florida State. And even in a really down year, going to Tallahassee and beating them is a big deal. So I asked Ryan, you know, did you soak it in at all? Did you really have the chance to enjoy? And this is what he said, if we can take a listen to that.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, Matt, I don't want to, like I told our staff, I don't want to minimize what that win meant. I mean, it is monumental. It is. And I think you just sit there and you think about it in the locker room, what a great feeling that was. Like, wow, we just beat Florida State. You know, I'm from Jacksonville. There was a good chance I was going to be on that staff, you know, possibly on that sideline. And you sit there and say, and look, Mike Norvell gets all my respect in the world. He's a brother of mine, and there's guys on that staff that I know and love so much. But it was just, man, what a great moment for our program and for our players that worked so hard that deserve it. For, you know, I sit there and think about, okay, is this a great step in our program's history? Absolutely. But it's only as good as the next thing. So, yeah, on the plane, took a deep breath, had the film in front of me, of course, you know, the iPad, and watching the film of the game. And then you land, you say, man, that's awesome. And then you get to see, we had fans at the airport. I mean, how cool was that? I mean, thank you to those fans that showed up at the airport to applaud our players that well deserve that recognition. So thank you to them. But yeah, I got to sit there. And then that night, I'm going to be honest, I sat there with a water in my hand, and I took a deep breath on the couch, watched other teams stress out playing football. And I said, man, how cool is that? We beat Florida State. And that's great. But then when I laid my head down on that pillow that night, it was triple option Annapolis in my brain, and here we go.
Yeah, so that was cool to hear from Ryan, just in terms of, yeah, like he did get to enjoy it, and they did soak it in, and he knows it's a big deal. Now, as he said, it's only as big as the next game. because you go lay an egg against Navy this week, then the luster of that win goes away really quickly. But ESPN analytics, which you can believe in as much as you want, but at the end of the day, they are very heavily invested with the college football playoff selection committee and whatnot. They showed a graphic during the broadcast that Memphis' chances to make the playoff out of the group of 5 were at 10% before that game, but with a win over Florida State, it would double basically to like 20%. So really, really big win for Memphis' playoff hopes. I think it probably gives them a little extra mulligan in conference play. Not that the conference games are huge because they have to, full stop, they have to probably minimum win the conference championship. But you might have a little bit of a mulligan now because you went on the road and beat a Florida State. So, yeah, huge win for Memphis. And I just want to say, as someone, obviously I've been a host on Ryan Silverfield's coach's show for the last couple of years, gotten to know a lot of people within the program relatively well during that time frame. It was really cool to see guys like Ryan, Seth Hennigan, Jordan Hankins, Chandler Martin, their star linebacker. It was cool to see those guys get that shine on national stage because those are all good dudes, man. Like the interaction I've had with them, a bunch of good people that really pour everything into making the program successful. So, yeah, that was cool. And now the Tigers are on to the conference opener tomorrow on the road at Navy, at the Naval Academy, which is always, everyone always says, I've never been there. Everyone always says it's a cool place to play. Navy is 2-0 in the year. They absolutely dominated Temple. This was 2 weeks ago, 38-11. Beat Bucknell in their opener by 4 touchdowns. So
interesting that Navy is coming off a bye week already this early in the season. So they've had plenty of time to prepare for Memphis. And last year it was down
very
to the
interesting.
Wire, right? Yeah.
That game,
4-point game.
Navy was driving in the final minute, and really it didn't look like the Memphis defense had many answers for them. And then Memphis got a 4th down stop by like that much, and that sealed the win. Otherwise,
a nail-biter last year.
That could have gone sideways.
And I think Navy and Memphis kind of always play tough like that.
Yeah. Now, a couple of years ago, Memphis actually did beat them pretty easily on the road. I know Navy has a new offense coordinator, so everyone's thinking triple option. It's probably going to be a heavy dose of triple option, which is obviously very tough to prepare for. But don't be surprised if they throw it a little bit more than maybe they have in the past. That being said, you should feel good if you're Memphis because you have – this is my 3rd Tiger football season I've covered. This is – I'm willing to say this already. I know it's early. This is hands down, far and away the best defense they've had. So that should make you feel good going against a team like Navy, which is going to present a unique challenge. But I think that – and actually I think Memphis playing as linebacker heavy as they do should actually help them a decent amount. So we'll see if Elijah Herring, their Tennessee transfer at linebacker, who was the AAC Defensive Player of the Week, after the Troy game, he missed the Florida State game. We'll see if he plays tomorrow. Fortunately, we don't have many answers on that because college football, or at least the AAC, doesn't do injury reports or anything like that. So hopefully that's something in the future. But as of right now, we don't know. So, yeah, big one for the Tigers last week. Huge to knock off Florida State, and now they get rolling in conference play on the road tomorrow. All right, we've also got a packed SEC schedule for this weekend.
Do you want to talk about the Memphis rumors real quick?
Yes, actually, let's hit on that real quick. I'm not sure if we can hit on that now or later, but go ahead.
So we're talking about a revival of the Pac-12. So the Pac-12 currently is just Oregon State and Washington State. They announced this week they're adding Boise State, Colorado State, all state schools, Fresno, and San Diego. So now the rumor bill is spinning. Memphis looks to be one of those schools that could really swing things towards a rebuilt Pac-12.
I'm not sure if we have the article up. Do you have the Yahoo article up from today?
No, I don't.
Okay. So Ross Dellinger, a great college football reporter for Yahoo Sports. The title of this article, Go West, ? The next wave of realignment is in Memphis' hands.
Yeah.
Basically, the Tigers can shift a lot of different things depending on if they go to this new version of the Pac-12 or not.
One of his points was 2 schools that are also rumored, your USF Bulls and Tulane, both unlikely to move without Memphis.
Right.
So their status
deal,
is kind of hanging on what is Memphis doing, because I think the majority of the outside sees Memphis as now this crown jewel of the AAC with all the realignment and everything and how successful Memphis has been. So that would kind of be a huge hit to the AAC which would make sense why they would then be looking at the Pac-12. But it's going to be very different than the Pac-12 that we're used to. I don't think we're going to get as many after dark games if we're getting Eastern schools like Memphis and Tulane, and I've seen some Liberty rumors.
Yeah. To back up your point, in this article, it says, this will really excite you, Tiger fans, quote, "The Pac-12's pursuit of Memphis justifies what many in college athletics know to be true. The most desirable remaining Group of 5 program is Memphis." It makes a lot of sense between the football program success. Obviously, you can say you want about the basketball program right now. The basketball program has a long storied history and is a national brand. It was a national brand, has been for a while. And then obviously, the article mentions it, the FedEx NIL deal and just kind of the FedEx involvement with the program, with the athletics department too, is a huge advantage for Memphis. So, earlier in the week I was maybe a little on the fence about it. I just wanted to see what some of the potential numbers would look like. Now, this article makes the point that the theoretical media rights revenue sharing that Memphis would get by going from the AAC to the Pac-12, it would be like $12 to $15 million a year, which is more than what they're getting in the AAC right now. But it is a theoretical because right now the Pac-12 doesn't have an actual TV deal. Right. So it all depends on how that actually comes together. It is a gamble, and that the article makes that point.
And they've still got to fill out the rest of the conference because they're only at 6 schools right now. Selfishly, one reason I want to be in favor of this, I want a yearly Memphis-Boise State rivalry.
That'd be sick.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah. Two perennial Group of 5, powers. Yeah, that would be awesome. And the more you think about it, at first I was like, is this conference really that much better? But even if Oregon State and Washington State and Boise State and whoever else aren't perennial national powers, man, they're better than Rice and East Carolina and a lot of the schools that are inhabiting the AAC right now. So I'm becoming more and more in favor of this by the day. The travel would not be fun, obviously, for a lot of. Now, obviously, potentially you'd have some Tulane trips in there, some USF trips if they go as well. Yeah, but
it's a lot of
the West Coast trips.
But it's really where we're going. We've got a Cal ACC team right now.
Stanford ACC
doesn't really make a lot of sense. A lot of historically really good offenses in that Pac-12 already. Washington State's having a really good season. They just beat their rival Washington pretty badly. So
basketball-wise too, we got to think about there's rumors that this new Pac-12 could go after like Gonzaga too. So and you've got San Diego State theoretically coming as well. So basketball-wise, that could actually be a pretty fun conference. That would not be. It wouldn't be a shoo-in at all for. Clearly, Memphis isn't even winning the AAC right now in basketball right now, but it would be competitive and fun, and that would be a multi-bid league. So yeah, I think that. I imagine it's going to happen. I can't say for certainty. I don't have any solid reporting on it, but I imagine it's going to happen at some point. And listen, I think for me, I'm thinking about it in terms of, I was earlier in the week of, is this really better than waiting out the ACC? But you know what? Someone brought up the point. Memphis has been waiting for a better conference forever.
Yep. Stop
waiting. Go. If you get an invite, go. And then if a potential ACC invite comes later on, worry about it then. Go to, as someone put it, go live it. I think it was Gary Parrish on CBS Sports. Go live in a better neighborhood. The Pac-12, this new look Pac-12 is probably a better neighborhood than the AAC. I would feel somewhat bad for the AAC, but I think we're probably getting to a point where there's some of these really small conferences are probably going to cease to exist at some point.
We're already seeing the Mountain West really losing a lot of their power right now.
And then they're talking about, if Memphis, Tulane, USF go to the Pac-12, then maybe the AAC snags, like James Madison and Liberty. Imagine Arkansas State might be in the conversation for that. So then what happens to the Sun Belt, what happens to Conference USA, stuff like that. But you got to, it's an eat or be eaten world. So Memphis has to do what's best for them. So it's going to be interesting. But I imagine my gut is it's going to happen, and it's probably the right move. So we'll see. All right, a lot of Tiger talk. Let's talk. We've got a stacked SEC football schedule this week. It's Starkville, Mississippi. Man, oof. Jacob, we got to talk about your boys in a second because disaster fuel, nightmare fuel.
I'd rather
last
not,
week
but we'll get to it.
For the Bulldogs, just getting absolutely trounced at home by Toledo. What was it, 41-17 the final, I believe?
That is correct.
Not good, not good. Arkansas traveling to take on Hugh Freeze and Auburn. Man, Tennessee, Oklahoma, that is going to be a phenomenal matchup. College game day will be there.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of matchups that get you really excited for this new look SEC. And Ole Miss, listen, I know the schedule is going to ramp up, but let's call it what it is. They have another cupcake game against Georgia Southern. With all due respect to Georgia Southern, Ole Miss should roll. All right, let's talk about your Bulldogs, man.
Yeah.
Not good at all last week.
Unmitigated disaster. The only thing that really gives me hope for this week is that Florida is a disaster.
Yes.
It sounds like Billy Napier is probably not going to make it through the rest of the season.
No, I'm surprised he made it to this week, to be honest.
Well, yeah. They got trounced by Texas A&M, who I don't think A&M is that good, just to be honest. So games in Starkville. You
going?
We've been talking. No. We've been talking about looking for the positives every week with first year new head coach, new offensive system. I got nothing. I don't have any.
Yeah.
From last week, I was at my friend's house watching the Tennessee game, and I think that was more entertaining of a game. Maybe as competitive. Yeah. It's just not a good look right now. But the only bright side is that maybe they can defeat Florida just because Florida is so bad. So I think the line is Florida -6 last time I looked.
Let me see if I can find it for you.
You know, that surprises me a little bit just because I think people would be really down on Florida right now. They've looked really bad.
-6 feels like a lot because Florida is not any good
Right.
at all.
You know, in Starkville, you'd think they would get a little more credit.
It is Florida -7 now.
-7 now. So that game's going to be a slop fest, as Mississippi State football tends to be. But, hopefully I can talk a little trash to Andrew Douglas next week when I get in. So
Our resident Gator anchor.
We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it was tough last week. And I don't think that's necessarily indicative of like, oh my God, the Levy era is a disaster already. But, you definitely, we talked about last week how important this kind of stretch of games for them was before, they go to Texas and Georgia back-to-back weeks after this. This stretch of games is pretty important if they want. Yeah. And expecting them to be bowl eligible this year is probably a little optimistic, but
I think after the Toledo loss, yeah,
it's probably a wrap.
I think that was realistic until now. It's no longer optimistic.
I will say, man, Mike Norvell and Florida State are probably counting their lucky stars for Billy Napier and the Gators because that's the only thing that's saving them from being the absolute, the entire spotlight of disaster class football in Florida being on them because the Gators are doing their part in sharing the spotlight. So that is an 11 a.m. kick from Starkville. Get up early.
So speaking of Slop Fest, we also have Arkansas Auburn this week. I don't know if you watched Arkansas last week. They did not look very good in a game that they probably should have easily won.
Against UAB,
Trailed for a while.
Yep.
I was hoping to see a little more of the Razorbacks after taking Oklahoma State really to the edge.
Yeah.
But I think whichever school loses this game is going to be really thinking hard about things because Auburn already has a pretty egregious loss this year. Things could turn into a poor downward spiral for whoever loses this game.
I will say, I don't know how much you've watched Taylor Green, Arkansas's quarterback. Very exciting, pure talent-wise, probably up there with any quarterback in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Not, very much not a finished product yet. Needs a lot of coaching, needs a lot of development, but he's pretty dynamite. So if there's one bright spot for Arkansas this year, it's something to really get you engaged as a fan and excited to watch them. I think it's that because his physical skills are through the roof. But that game is Auburn by 2.5. They're favored. So, yeah, that's kind of a big game for both teams just in terms of, all right, which way is the rest of the season going to go? And do we have any hope of being bowl eligible? All right, let's talk about, the heavy hitter on this slate, though. The heavy hitter on the college football slate in general this weekend. Number 6, Tennessee, traveling to number 15, Oklahoma. First time this is an SEC matchup. Listen, man, Tennessee looks real good.
I think last week is probably the most dominant I've ever seen a football team.
Over Kent State?
At no point did Kent State look like they belonged on that field. Tennessee,
some quick.
interestingly, went for an onside kick up 30 in the first quarter.
Tennessee's outscoring their opponents.
They could have easily broke 100
Yeah.
if they had not
Yes.
let up the gas.
Tennessee's
it was
outscoring their
outrageous.
opponents. Let me see if I can do this math off the top. They're 191-13 this season.
Yeah.
And again, like I understand that two of those teams are Chattanooga and Kent State. One of them was NC State in a neutral site game, and the Wolfpack were number 24 in the country at the time. And the Vols just absolutely destroyed them 51-10. We were talking off camera before. Nico Iamaleava, I mean, is just absolutely as good as advertised.
Is he your Heisman favorite right now?
Probably.
I think he's got to be.
And there's already talk in like kind of draft circles, like draft Twitter and whatnot, that he is the type of quarterback that NFL teams are going to be tanking for in 2025 because he is the heavy favorite to be the number one pick in the 2026 draft. He surely, I mean, just the limited sample I've seen from him, I would surely take him to start my NFL franchise over any quarterback that's coming out next year. So this is not the year to be tanking if you're an NFL team, but next year might be. Yeah, I mean.
So, I mean, NC State was a challenge for them. Not really. In theory, they were a challenge. Oklahoma State should present more of a challenge than anyone they've seen so far. But the way Tennessee looks, you got to feel like they've got a good shot at winning that game. Even in Norman.
I think that they are, we have to say at this point, tomorrow will give us a firm answer either way. I think they're absolutely a national championship contender. Like, they have to be. And with all due respect to Hendon Hooker, who was awesome a couple of years ago, I think that Nico might be able
He's
to
on another level.
elevate them even more so. And the really exciting thing, if you're a Tennessee fan, is that Nico is guaranteed another year. So, and I can't imagine he's going to leave there unless someone just throws him an insane amount of NIL money. But even then, I imagine
maybe he'll go for the free biscuits at Marshall.
I imagine Tennessee's going to hold on to him. But yeah, that's a 6:30 kick on ABC tomorrow, and that's that's going to be a really good game. Looking forward to that. And then, last but not least, we have down in Oxford, Ole Miss this week, only 34.5-point favorites over Georgia Southern.
This is a little low.
Yeah, well, they've been 40-plus point favorites, I think. Well, not against Wake Forest, they weren't. But, man, they just dominated Wake last week. So much so that, and I'm sure that Wake Forest made up their mind on this before the game, but the Diva Deacons bought out of the return game in Oxford next year, which I know Lane Kiffin was none too happy about, nor should they be, because that puts them in a tough spot for next year. Because, we're talking about Ole Miss playing this cupcake schedule to start the year. Well, next year we're going to look at it and say, well, they should have had a home game against Wake Forest, and instead they're going to get some FCS school.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault.
Wake Forest, in theory, is a Power 4 team.
Yeah, ACC team.
Historically
maybe not a very
not
good
great,
one, but
yeah. And now you're going to replace them with,
a
cupcake. So.
Yeah. Man, but Ole Miss just cooking right now, man. I mean, they haven't given up a touchdown in 3 games. Jackson Dart looks awesome. We're talking about Heisman favorites. Nico is probably my Heisman favorite right now, but Jackson Dart's got to be really high up there because he's been awesome so far. With his arm especially, been on the ground as well.
It'll be really interesting to see how they react to whenever they get a real challenge, which they've got some tough ones coming up on the
starting
schedule.
Not
for a while, but yeah.
Next Saturday against Kentucky. I think that'd be, Kentucky took Georgia down to the wire.
They did.
In Lexington last week, so I think that could be a fun one.
Kentucky could not move the ball, but their defense looked fantastic against Georgia. So.
Henry Parrish has really emerged as the Rebs lead back as well. He scored 6 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, going for over 130 yards in both games. So, 6:45 kick in Oxford tomorrow. Looking forward to that, and a good week of college football across the board. All right, let's talk a little NFL. Man, week 3 could not have started any better, in my humble opinion. My Jets take care of business against, God, it feels so good to dominate the Patriots, man. It really does. After all those years where they made my life as a football fan just living hell. But you know what? I put on my Instagram story. See, the thing about the old days, the old days. It's a new era now. Man, it was a fun night. That was probably about as much fun as I've had watching a Jet game in a while.
Yeah, we got a little Drake May action.
Yeah.
Not much. They threw him out to
Not
the
fun,
Wolves out
yeah.
there. But yeah, that was kind of the big takeaway from the game, other than just the Jets just thrashed the Patriots. The Patriots didn't look in their league, but they did beat the Bengals just a couple weeks ago So,
That's the thing. I think the Patriots offense
you start
sucks,
to wonder how they beat the Bengals.
because the Bengals are just abysmal in week
Just-
one every
yeah.
year. I think the Patriots
So
offense
starters.
sucks. I don't think their defense is
It's
bad,
not
which is
good.
probably makes last night even more encouraging.
Shout out Ramondre Stevenson, about 0.3 fantasy points
Bro,
last
I've
night.
got way too much Ramondre Stevenson in my fantasy leagues this year. 0.3.
Yeah, I mean, Jacoby Brissett shouldn't be a starter in the league. I get why they're rolling him out there. Because
Well, you saw
wanna
that offensive line.
Right, you want to protect your franchise guy and Drake May, your presumptive franchise guy. But I think it's going to be a tough season the longer you keep him on the bench.
Can we say it, though? And I haven't wanted to get too excited yet, but after last night, Aaron Rodgers is back. Like, all the way back. And I'm not talking like he'll never be 2011 to 16
Right.
Rodgers where he was just making all these crazy unscripted plays outside the pocket. But last night he looked a lot like 2020, 21 Rodgers when he won back-to-back MVPs with the Packers. And if we get that version of Rodgers the rest of the season, which, God willing, stays healthy, because even last night I'm nervous every time he scrambles, every time he gets outside the pocket, every time he takes a sack. But if he stays healthy and he's playing at that level the rest of the season, the Jets are going to be a factor.
That touchdown pass to Wilson, that's a
Sick.
throw. Maybe Mahomes, but it feels like Rodgers is the only guy that can make that throw.
It's just, like week one, I was like, okay, not fantastic, little rust there, but the arm's still live. I was at the week 2 win over the Titans in Nashville. That was fun. And seeing him, okay, move around a little bit better, engineers a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, like, okay, this is progress from last week. And then last night, just seeing him, again, he actually ran 3 times, but just a bunch of, escaping the pocket, creating, extending plays, making the vintage off-platform Aaron Rodgers throws. It was a lot of fun. Like, that was, and I didn't expect that this early in his return. I thought maybe that would come later on in the season, but he looked, that was what we were expecting from him before the Achilles tear.
It's really all you can ask out of a 4-year-old quarterback at
he
this
looked
point.
awesome.
The arm
last
is
night.
definitely still there.
Yeah, and
definitely
so is some of the mobility. Again, people forget how mobile he was 10 years ago. He's not that, but he could still move and create plays. And I think probably just as encouraging to me, they have, I'm not going to call it Breece Hall and Braylon Allen 3 games into his NFL career, the best backfield duo in the league, but I'm willing to say it's up there because Braylon Allen has looked awesome in his first 3 NFL games. And defense is really good. Obviously, we knew that would be the case. Still would be nice to get Hassan Reddick in the ability at some point. And probably the best thing offensively is, to me, I think they left at least 10 points on the board last night. And clearly, Rodgers and Garrett Wilson are still not all the way there on their connection yet. When they hit, that's going to be fun. So it's encouraging right now. I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself because the Jets have burned me too many times in my life. But last night was a lot of fun. I'm pretty optimistic about how this looks moving forward. Let's hit on the Titans real quick, though. As I just mentioned, I was at Titans-Jets on Sunday. Titans lost 24-17. They dropped to 0-2 on the season, and now they welcome in your Green Bay Packers on Sunday.
Yeah,
you going?
So you were in Nashville last weekend. I'll be there this weekend to see
Malik Willis?
likely Malik Willis.
Revenge game.
Jordan Love has been practicing this week, so he hasn't been rolled out yet.
I don't think he plays.
Matt LaFleur had a masterpiece last
Yes.
weekend. The run game was incredible, just gashing that Indy defense. I don't know how much of that is the Colts defense being bad. They did give up a lot of rushing yards in week 1 too, but just gashed that defense on the ground. And then they really just kind of let Malik Willis hand it off and dump off passes. He did have, shout out, a really excellent pass to Romeo Doubs in, I think, the 3rd or 4th quarter.
And the touchdown pass to Dontavian Wicks wasn't bad either.
Right, so he got some nice throws in there, but they definitely protected him. I think he only threw the ball 16 times or so.
That sounds about right.
So we'll see if the Titans defense can hold up better to that game plan, because
Titans
if
defense, I
it's-
think, is good.
If it's Malik Willis, I think you're going to see the exact same thing this week. Maybe another 30 carry game for Josh Jacobs. And we'll see what happens with the wild card that is Will Levis delivering us a meme every week.
12 for 14 was Malik Willis last week. So
14, okay.
I've said it before. I covered the Packers about LaFleur for years. That dude does not get enough credit. I think he's started to now, because at first it was, well, he's coaching Aaron Rodgers. But as someone who was there right at the end of the Mike McCarthy era and then at the start of the LaFleur era, Rodgers does not win those 2 MVPs in 2021 without Matt LaFleur. And Rodgers has acknowledged that himself. LaFleur is a terrific offensive mind. He is a great head coach. I think, to me, there's probably the tier 1 of head coaches in the NFL right now is probably, in some order, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. But if you have Matt LaFleur at the top of that next year, I'm not mad about it in the slice. I think he's that good. Creating a game plan. I mean, not a lot of head coaches can come up with a plan that brilliant on short notice for a quarterback as limited, let's call it what it is, as Malik Willis.
And to me, that style of offense, we talked about throwing a quarterback to the Wolves earlier, but the style of offense you get from the McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur, they all run a similar type of offense.
Yeah.
It really allows you to kind of protect the quarterback back there, which we did with Malik Willis. Shanahan's been doing with Brock Purdy, who's thriving in that offense.
Yep.
And it's a really good offense for a quarterback to get into because you don't need an elite MVP level quarterback to win. And it's just really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Especially establishing the run, which we're big fans of.
Man, Will Levis, I mean, watching that turnover last week in person, he's falling to the ground, he just flips it backwards to Tajay Spears and the Jets recover. I will say this, though. Watching him in person, we were talking about who's cooked last week, who's not. I've surely not given up on him because he had a couple of sensational throws that very few quarterbacks in the league can make. Like the touchdown pass to Calvin Ridley down the right sideline with Sauce Gardner draped all over him. I mean, when he caught that ball, we were stunned just in the stadium. Like, oh, my God. Just an incredible throw and catch.
Yeah.
And the arm talent is through the roof. And, I'm not saying Will Levis needs unlimited leash, but he's certainly talented enough to where I think the Titans should ride out whatever bumps they have for a little bit with him, let him get developed by Brian Callahan, and see where you're at in like a year and a half. Because to me, I think this is such a better direction for them. Like the last couple of years of the Ryan Tannehill era, it was, okay, this quarterback's super limited. He can get the job done. You'll win 9 regular season games and lose in the playoffs. At least with Levis, you could sit here and say, all right, if we can develop it, if we can get some of the recklessness out of his game, this could be a really special quarterback that could take us places. So, but yeah, he's got to chill out because the intrusive thoughts that he has playing that position sometimes are wild. I think I've arrived at his spectrum, his range of outcomes is either very diet Josh Allen on the good end or Jameis Winston on the poor end. And where he falls on that is going to determine whether the Titans have their guy.
And I think the Titans have to ride it out because we talked about the Patriots earlier. They're kind of stuck where whoever's out there is probably not winning a lot of games. The Titans are a team that's built to win right now, and you don't really have another option. Mason Rudolph is not your quarterback of the future, so you'd just be punting at Levis if you benched him. So you really do have to kind of ride it out and hope he can fix these things in real time, like as soon as this week, and turn these things around.
Brian Callahan giving us an all-time lip-reading moment after that Levis fumbled too with a, hey, what the are you doing? Which, and to give Brian Callahan credit, it wasn't like he backed down when he asked about post-game either. He was like, nah, I was pissed. He's got to stop doing this stuff. He cost us 3 points in a game where we could have really used those 3 points. So, I mean, he's got to stop with the stupid turnovers. If he does that, he could be a really good player. But right now, it's just 2 weeks in a row with just 2 of the funniest turnovers by a quarterback you'll ever see. Yeah. So, that's that. I wonder what the line on that game is. I'm inclined to take the Packers just because I trust LaFleur that much. Malik Willis, by the way, I don't know if you saw his comments, taking the high road in terms of, like, he was asked, like, hey, do you want to stick it to the Titans if you get the chance to start? And he was like, nah, they gave me an opportunity. Like, I'm grateful for it. Titans -3. Interesting. Okay. All right, we'll see. I do not think Jordan Love should play, by the way.
Okay.
I would give him another week.
He has been limited in practice, so it kind of tells you it could kind of go either way. But they waited until the last minute, really, to rule him out last week. So I think that kind of hints that his injury might not be quite as bad as we all thought at first. But, yeah.
Just be smart with it.
If you can win with Malik Willis, why not?
I think at the very least, beating the Colts gave them a lot of kind of flexibility. Because if you drop to 0-2, then I think the urgency to play Jordan Love this week might have really been there. But winning that game, like, to me, I I would try to steal another one this week. Worst case, you drop to 1-2. None of them are division games, and probably have Jordan Love back for the NFC North opener at home against the Vikings 2 Sundays from now on September 29th. That's just me. We'll see what happens. All right, Sunday night game right here on Action News 5 coming up. The 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the ATL to take on Kirko Chainz and the Atlanta Falcons, coming off a thrilling, just incredible comeback win. Sorry, Griffin over there. We got to bring this up, but Griffin's an Eagles fan. But, man, just a really kind of a season-changing drive for the Falcons to close out that game last Monday night on the road at Philly when it looked like they were cooked, about to go to 0-2. The Michael Penix, when is he coming in? Those discussions were going to ramp up, and then Kirk said, not so fast.
Vintage Kirk showed up in the second half. Yeah, I think Kansas City Atlanta is probably the most intriguing game of the schedule, just because of how Atlanta looked last week. It's like, all right, well, can you do that again? What you did in the second half last week, and yeah, Kansas City squeaked one out last week.
Or the Bengals, yeah.
Yeah,
man, the Bengals have had some heartbreakers against the Chiefs the last couple of years.
Yeah,
just
that was
really
tough.
Tough stuff. Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins clearly is still not all the way back. Now, the last drive, he had some great throws. I still think on some of those throws, kind of deep and outside the numbers, you can see the ball doesn't have quite the same zip as it used to. But, people brought up the point. Everyone kind of grouped Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins in the same bucket together this offseason, 2 older quarterbacks coming off Achilles tears. Aaron Rodgers tore his left Achilles, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Kirk Cousins tore his right Achilles, the plant foot. Second of all, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles week 1. Kirk Cousins tore his week 8. That is a 2-month difference. Pretty big deal when it comes to recovery. Mm-hmm. I imagine Aaron Rodgers did not look as good as he did last night as he did didn't look the way he did last night in July, 2 months ago. So
yeah.
I think that, don't get me wrong, I think Kirk looked really good at the end of the game. But I don't think he's all the way back yet. But, yeah, man, if they would have dropped to 0-2 and then you're welcoming the Chiefs into town this week, all of a sudden that gets loud pretty quickly there. So that was an important drive last week. We still, I'd say this selfishly, as a fantasy owner of his in many leagues and someone who just likes the talent, we still need to get Drake London the ball more.
Agreed.
It was nice to get him that touchdown to win the game on Monday night, but he is very talented. He is open a lot. Let's get Drake London more targets. I'm a limited Kyle Pitts owner. I don't really care as much about that, but we should probably get Kyle Pitts the ball some more.
I would like to see rookie Kyle Pitts kind of making another appearance because I think he's still got it in him.
Somewhere. Someone's made the point, though. Someone has made the point, though. We're talking about, Kyle Pitts had the generational tight end prospect label put upon him when he was coming out. Who's a generational tight end prospect? Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who, to me, is the best college tight end I've ever watched, and he's looked the part so far in the league. So, but either way, yeah, Kansas City, and Kansas City's not been super, or at least they squeaked one out last week, but it's still offense still is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Clearly, last year they showed they could win a Super Bowl even when the offense is not perfect, but. Yeah, well, we'll see. That is an interesting game. All right, let's run through some. What do we got? Some 0-2 teams. We're going to discuss whether we are worried about them or not, right?
Yeah, so list the 2-0 teams. You tell me which teams you're worried about. And so we've got the Rams, the Ravens, Broncos, Panthers, Giants, Titans, Jaguars, Colts, and Bengals, all 0-2. So the reason I bring this up, the data will tell you basically if you go to 0-3, you're not making the playoffs. It's essentially a done deal. I believe the Texans made it in 2018. Maybe the only team that did it. But so if you're 0-2, you have to win this week.
Yeah.
So who among these teams are you worried about?
The Rams are down Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. They have a million injuries. As much as I like Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, I think they're in big trouble. Not worried about the Ravens at all. I think the Ravens are a team I'm least worried about here. Losing to the Raiders at home last week wasn't great, but they were one Isaiah likely toenail away from potentially winning that game in Kansas City week 1. Lamar Jackson's still really good. I think the offense is good. I'm not worried about them. The Broncos, there were a lot of people on social media praising Bo Nix after week 1. I think he's been exactly what I thought he would be. He's a checked out artist. I don't think he's that good. He's not a needle mover. The Broncos are just not really a threat to me. The Panthers, Now, listen, the Panthers are going to play more credible football now they've benched Bryce Young for Andy Dalton. Do I think that they're a real threat? No. So does that count as worrying? Yeah, I don't think the Panthers will do anything this year. But I think that is going to be a better product, at least, as bad as that sounds, with 36-year-old Andy Dalton instead of number 1 overall pick last year, Bryce Young. So tough situation there for sure. Giants, just feed Malik Neighbors. That's all I got to say.
They did last week.
They did last week. Keep doing it, even though they've got a tough matchup with the Browns this week. Titans got to win this week. I'm not out on the Titans, but like we discussed, you got to win this week, and Will Levis has to show some better decision making. So I'm not all the way out on them because I kind of believe in the bones of the operation. I think the defense is pretty good. But yeah, you got to beat the Packers this week.
I think with as good as the Texans have looked, 0-3, that division's probably gone.
Yeah. Then you got to pray you can get back in the wild card race. Safe division, Jags. I'm super out on the Jags, man. And to be honest, you will not hear me slander Trevor Lawrence one bit. I am very much out on Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, and just the organization in general because I think that they have failed Trevor massively. Can Trevor play a little bit better? Probably, but I'm just out on Dougie P and that whole coaching staff. That Super Bowl win 6-7 years ago is still carrying him. Colts are interesting. I like Shane Steichen a lot.
The defense looks very poor.
Defense is really bad. And
good.
Anthony Richardson, I am very much for riding it out with Anthony Richardson.
But he has made a ton of mistakes.
He's just generally inaccurate right now. Now, I think that the upside with him is worth riding out the bumps. Because if he hits, he's going to hit really big. And sometimes you got to play that game with quarterbacks. So, little worried there. But maybe not over the top. But I think they got to beat the Bears this week. And then Bengals 0-2, and they are now. I think the Bengals have a great get-right game this Monday night against the Commanders. The Commanders' secondary just gives up monster days to wide receivers. So I expect this to be a get-right game for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I think they actually, for all the concern about Burrow week 1 against the Patriots, I actually thought he looked pretty good last week. Maybe didn't push the ball downfield as much as you'd like to see, but thought Burrow look closer to what we expect out of Joe Burrow. So I'm not as concerned about the Bengals. But a lot of these teams, I'm worried about. Okay, so that's that. Now, on the flip side of the coin.
Yeah, so 2-0. The reason I bring this up, we're going to have either a 3-0 Steelers or Chargers this week. Unless they tie, I suppose. And I think either of those would be fraudulent. So you tell me who's a fluke among the Bills, Steelers, Texans, Chargers, Chiefs, Vikings, Saints, Bucks, and Seahawks.
Bills are for real. Josh Allen, QB2 in the league. Defense is really good. Run game's awesome. They're legit. Steelers, I think the Steelers are a little fraudulent, but at the same time, this is kind of what they've done the last couple of years. Mediocre to bad quarterback play, good enough run game, awesome defense. You look up at the end of the season, and they've won 9 games and stuck in the playoffs. So kind of 50-50 on that. Texans, I think we all know Texans are for real. C.J. Stroud is terrific. To be honest, last week they didn't play.
Nico Collins has been the best receiver in the league so far.
Yes. A big Nico Collins stand here. Have him in a lot of fantasy leagues. And to be honest, last week they didn't play a terrific game because the Bears' defense is pretty good. They only put up 19 points last week. But yeah, they're awesome. They'll be there all the way to the end. Chargers, fraudulent making the playoffs, yes. I already think this is a better operation than it was at any point under Brandon Staley. Yeah, 100%.
It appears so.
They've got a real run game. They've got a real defense. Justin Herbert, I think Justin Herbert can be Superman, but he hasn't had to be so far. And now he's dealing with an ankle injury, so he might not have the ability to be. But yeah, the Chargers are a 7 to 8 win team for me this year. And next year, I think they could be a legitimate playoff contender. Chiefs, obviously, we know the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Not much needs to be said there. Until the Chiefs lose in January, I'm not concerned about that. At that point, it's too late. Vikings, listen, man. I put down a $10 bet on Kevin O'Connell to win Coach of the Year at plus 2,000 after J.J. McCarthy was announced as out for the year. I think Kevin O'Connell's terrific, one of the best offensive minds in the league. Any of you that were fading the best wide receiver on the planet, Justin Jefferson, foolish. And Brian Flores has been awesome with that defense this year because they had Brock Purdy and the 49ers in the blender last week. Brock Purdy walked up to him after the game and said, scheme was crazy.
And it was. Their defense might be the best in the league when it comes down to it. And then I may not have had the faith in the quarterback play this year, but I will never doubt Justin Jefferson. incredible. He had a huge touchdown this week.
97 yards, yeah.
97.
And he's going to play. He left that game with a quad contusion, but he's off the injury report. He's good for this Sunday. Let me tell you, man, next team on this list, the New Orleans Saints are for real. It is amazing what a play caller can do to change an entire operation around. Last year, under Pete Carmichael, their former offense coordinator, who was there since the early Sean Payton days, they were one of the worst, not the worst teams in the league, but they had some of the lowest rates in the league of pre-snap motion and play action. This year, under new offense coordinator Clint Kubiak, who comes off, obviously he's the son of Gary Kubiak, who was one of the best offensive minds in NFL history. Clint Kubiak comes off the Kyle Shanahan tree, was the 49ers pass game coordinator last year. He comes in, and immediately the Saints are running more pre-snap motion than any team in the league and some of the most play action of any team in the league. Derek Carr looks awesome. Alvin Kamara's had a red-hot start this season. Rashid Shaheed is a burner. He's had a couple of long touchdowns already, and they haven't even activated Chris Olave yet, who I think is their best wide receiver. So, no, I think the Saints are very much for real. I'm actually picking the Saints to beat the Eagles this week.
I was buying a lot of Alvin Kamara stock this year because I think he's still got plenty in the tank, and he's looked really good.
Yeah. 4 touchdowns
Derek Carr
last week.
looking surprisingly good, which I always kind of thought Derek Carr, given the right situation, could succeed, and he has right now.
Derek Carr, as much flack he's gotten the last couple of years, he's not like a bottom 5 to 10 starting quarterback in the league.
Not.
He's in the right situation. I mean, people forget. I mean, I know it was a long time ago. This guy was a front-running MVP candidate. It was in 2016. Then he broke his leg late in the season. He's got enough talent, but he's played some bad offensive schemes the last couple of years. Now, I'm not saying Derek Carr is all of a sudden a top 5 quarterback in the league, but do I think he's good enough to lead this offense the way they're rolling right now? Yeah, I do. So I think the Saints are for real. Buccaneers, another team I think is legit. Liam Cohen coming over from the Rams. A lot of people were wondering how this is going to look with Dave Canales, their offensive coordinator last year, taking the Panthers head coaching job. Man, Liam Cohen's hit the ground running. He's got Chris Godwin in kind of the Cooper Kupp role in this offense. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans obviously have an awesome connection. And Todd Bowles, you can say what you want about Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles coaches defense. Yeah, I think they're legit. I mean, them and the Saints, that all of a sudden could be a fun division.
Awesome. Baker has looked awesome.
Yeah, Baker's been great so far. And they beat the Lions on the road last week. I mean, that's not an easy feat.
That's a big win.
That's a good team on the road. That's a big win for them. And then the Seahawks, again, another example of how coaching change and scheme change can really uplift an offense, because Mike McDonald, old Ravens defense coordinator, comes in. Defense looks great, and then they grab Ryan Grubb, who was the University of Washington's offense coordinator last year. Obviously, that high-powered attack with Penix playing quarterback, and then you had the trio of Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan at wide receiver. And all of a sudden, DK Metcalf came alive last week. So did Jackson Smith and Jigba, someone I'm really high on. They each had, I think they had 30 targets between the two of them. Each of them had over 100 receiving yards. So, yeah, I'm buying some Seahawks stock as well. I think a lot of these 2-0 teams are actually pretty legit, to be honest. All right.
You want to hit this one really quick?
Yep.
Because I got a few numbers to run at you. Obviously, we saw last night, Shohei Ohtani, 50-50 season. Unreal. He's got an OPS over 1,000 this year. He leads the league in slugging, leads the league in RBIs. I mean, 181 OPS plus is just outrageous. He's almost hitting 300, and then 51 stolen bases on top of it. He's just.
Can we talk about his game yesterday, though? In terms of.
It was.
Brother,
yeah.
He came in needing, I think, 2 home runs and 1 steal to get to 50-50. Mm-hmm. How is a 6-for-6 day with 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 2 steals, and 4 runs scored? And how's that for you?
Respect to Skip Schumacher. After the game, they asked him why he pitched to him. And he's like, just respect the game. The guy is going crazy right now. They weren't going to win that game anyway. He knows that. Yep. If it was a close game, you probably walk him, but the Marlins were getting thrashed, and respect to Skip Schumacher for letting history kind of play out.
17 total bases as well. With that game, he becomes the first player in baseball history to go 50-50. And by the way, under-discussed aspect of all this, he also set the Dodgers' single-season record for home runs. The Dodgers are one of the most iconic franchises in American sports. So I think it's the greatest game. Given all the historical context, I think it's the greatest game by a position player in the history of the sport.
That's big.
I mean, like the stats and then like the 50-50 at setting the Dodgers record. I mean, I've said it. Whether you want to consider him the greatest baseball player of all time, just given the lack of volume, I get that. No one has ever played this game at a higher level than him. And this is,
Unreal.
again, remember, this is in a year where he is not pitching because he's coming off elbow reconstruction surgery at this time last year. Next year he's going to be pitching too. I almost wonder, it is an interesting discussion if you almost exclusively make him an offensive player. Like, does he provide enough value as an offensive player alone?
Statistically, this has been his best hitting season.
Yeah. I wonder if that's coincidence or not, but it's got to be a thought.
And we're talking about a guy who's already got 2 MVPs, so
Yeah.
this has been his best season offensively.
All due respect to Francisco Lindor, but if the MVP race wasn't over before yesterday, it's super over now.
Lindor's been incredible, but it's not a contest. No. It's really not.
All right, let's hit a couple things real quick. Grizz, let's talk Grizz. Man, these jerseys are fire. These jerseys are fire.
Those are
the Vancouver
fantastic.
throwbacks. I've been waiting for these to come back. These are awesome.
These are incredible. Really nothing.
I think they're wearing them for the home
more to
opener
say
too.
They are. So if you saw this week, I don't think we could show it, but because it hasn't been officially announced, but there's also a throwback in the works.
The red one?
It's the city edition, but it's a throwback to the Memphis Sounds. If you remember the 2016 season, I believe.
That's the red
they
one,
wore
right?
Those. Yeah.
Red one looks
very,
fire as well.
Very similar. You still see a lot of the Vince Carters out there. Yeah.
That's gonna be sick.
They're going to be looking good this year.
And then they also have a new sponsor, Robinhood. Shout out Robinhood. They're going to be the Grizzlies' first jersey sponsor since FedEx in 2021. So they'll have the little patch on the top of jerseys.
It's whatever.
Yeah, it's the world we live in.
It doesn't look great with the jersey, but, bringing a little extra cash to the franchise.
I'm going to make the executive call. We're not going to hear from Ja Morant, but Ja Morant, just so you know, he was asked yesterday about Zach Edey and working out with him over the summer, and he said Zach Edey is definitely winning Rookie of the Year.
Definitely.
So we'll see. And Ja's obviously one to hype up his teammates, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if you're right. If I was a betting man, which I am sometimes, but I don't bet on the teams I cover. But I think Edey's a pretty smart bet because I just think he's ready to roll right away. He's going to fit this team really well. I think he is the favorite.
If he plays his role well and they win a lot of games, I think it's probably a home run call to say he can win Rookie of the Year.
All right, man. We've been going for like an hour. Let's finish this up. We got a quiz.
We've got a 6-minute trivia.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you do the honors over there on that computer next to you.
Okay.
So I don't know the answer, so we can work this one together.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
So we are looking at the Grizzlies' all-time leaders in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. And it's the top 10 for each category.
Okay. Ready?
How you feel?
I feel pretty good. Decent. I
do not think we're going to get this. I think there's going to be some sicko
I'm not
names
getting all
on
of
here.
them, but like, can C's get degrees here? Probably.
I think we're going to get some sicko names on this list.
Let's do it. All right, ready to roll?
All right.
Am I doing it or you?
You take control.
All right, here we go. All right, let's go Mike Conley.
Okay.
We've got 4.
Gasol is going to get you 2 answers.
Gasol. Yes, we are. We are going Zebo.
Of course.
We are going to go Morant. We are going to go Jackson.
Allen.
We are going to go TA. We are going to go, is Bane on here? Anywhere? Not yet. Let's see. Older Grizzlies. All right.
Okay.
Abdur Rahim?
Ooh, I don't think he played long enough.
No.
I'm wrong.
Abdur Rahim gets us 4 right there.
I think for rebounds, Lorenzen Wright, maybe?
Okay, let's go Lorenzen Wright.
He was a rebound
Nice,
machine.
okay. And blocks. Hey, we're at 30 out of 50 already. Okay. Let's
really
go
want you to...
Battier. Battier.
Okay, that makes sense. Steals and blocks.
Mike Miller.
Maybe.
Yep.
Okay, points, rebounds, and assists. He was.
Okay, so who's their 5th leading scorer of all time?
Ooh. Fifth leading scorer of all time.
Man, I'm trying to think. Who else?
Is Bane on there?
No, I already typed in Bane.
Okay, you already tried Bane. I really want you to rip Stromile Swift for the rebounds or blocks.
Okay, let's do it. Stromile Swift. There we go.
Boom.
Both of them. Good call. Really good call. Hey, we're at 37 out of 50 already.
I love Stromile Swift growing up, man.
We want to pull it up so that people can see real quick. There we go. Okay, this is where we're at. All right. Points,
4 and
rebound.
change.
Man, this is kind of tough. Man,
Jason Williams for assists?
yes, actually, white chocolate. Let's see.
Or Bibby?
Yes, sir.
Try Bibby, too.
Let's try
maybe.
Bibby as well. There we
Okay,
go.
he was there
Assist.
long enough.
Hey, man, we're already at 8%. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. Okay, let's see. Points. Bro, this kind of bothered me a little bit.
I can't fathom that we're missing the 5th all-time scorer.
Who is the 5th all-time leading scorer in Grizzlies history?
And we're missing 10, but
Man, let me think. Vince Carter wasn't here long enough for anything to add no shot.
no, I wouldn't imagine so. I really want to get the other 2 blocks.
We got the number 2 blocks.
No, the 2 that we're missing.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and points? Man, this is kind of tough, actually. This feels like
I told you there was going to be some sicko names on here.
But we've got 8% already, which feels pretty solid.
Yeah. Bryant Reeves doesn't make anything, does he? Maybe rebounds?
Reeves. Wow, this is a name that you know that I do not even. No.
Yeah. He was the Vancouver days. Whew. We're
No.
roasted if we don't finish this.
Just typed in Steve-O just in case he gobbled up
No,
enough rebounds.
yeah,
A couple,
that makes
even though he
sense.
wasn't long enough. Was no shot Valanciunas here long enough. That was good try.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
We got 2
Man,
minutes.
I wish we could phone a friend here. Maybe Doc. The Doc's not here. Man, I'm trying to think of some of those early 2000s guys. But we got a lot of them because we got Powell, we got Battier, we got White Chocolate, we got Mike Miller.
It might be largely backups at this point.
Except for the 5th lead scorer. I mean,
No, that one's not going to be a backup.
hold on. No Tayshaun. Okay,
Was Mario Chalmers in long enough to get assists?
let's try him. No, good call though. Oh, two.
Some 10 names.
We're down to the last 90 seconds. To be honest, though, like, until we hit the wall, like we've been doing pretty well because we got 40 out of 50. So that's 80. That's a B minus. Bro, this is bothering me now. Because I hate when I hit the wall with these. Because we got almost all the assists. We're missing 2 guys for points, 3 steals guys.
Nah, I'm just so blanking right now.
You know, we've done 5 minutes. I think I'm going to make the executive decision to give up.
Go for it.
All right, let's see what we got after we get the sponsor content out of the way. All right.
Let's wait out the ad.
2 ads? All right, we got to wait this out. I'm really curious because I felt like we were rolling there for a while, but then like you would think the 5th leading scorer of all time would be easier, but it was not. All right. 3 seconds until the moment of truth. Multiple moments of truth. Oh, Rudy, I'm an idiot. We're idiots for that.
Dylan Brooks, number 10. That's surprising. He was here a long time. Tyus Jones, 8th in assists.
Oh no, we're idiots for forgetting Rudy though.
Yeah, he was on there 4 times.
Even Dylan,
Brian Reeves was there for blocks. You spelled his name wrong.
Oh, sorry.
It was and rebounds.
Sorry. I spelled it with an A instead of 2 E's.
Okay.
Oh, we're idiots for forgetting Rudy. I feel really dumb for forgetting Rudy.
Really should have got Dylan Brooks as well,
Yeah,
just
we
because
should've
of
got
the
Dylan.
longevity and the steals. Yeah.
All right, with that is a shameful end to
Respect
this
to Rudy
edition.
Gay. Sorry, we forgot you.
Yeah, and I met Rudy at the Marcus Gasol jersey retirement too. And I've had good enough interaction with Dylan too. I like covering Dylan, but that's a shameful end to this edition of Fast Five Sports. Another great episode in the books. Thank you to Jacob Gallant, Digital King, Stat Boy, for all the help today. I'm Matt Infield. We'll be back next Friday, but don't forget tonight, Friday Football Fever coming up tonight at 10 o'clock with a preview at 6 on Action News 5. We're out. See you later.